Hey, David, it's so good to have you on the Everyday Mystic. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Carissa. It's great to be with you. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, this is fun because I don't often get to speak to people who I haven't met. I've been doing this podcast for 2 years, and a lot of my guests have been friends or in my network or have been introduced to me by somebody that I know. But you really struck me when I received your magazine as someone I wanted to talk to. And that's honestly how I've been either choosing my guests or they choose me, have been aligning with the energy of the person. And so I don't really know anything about you, to be honest, except for the fact that you produce this really amazing magazine called Awaken Magazine. But I don't know much else about you, but I know your energy. And what struck me about it is this beautiful openness to seek and to learn and to take in the awe and wonder of what this world holds and what this world is all about. I feel that in you, that you're on this adventure to discover what this is all about. And of course, you've got a podcast as well, talking to so many illuminated figures and people where you're doing just that and talking a lot to me at least, what it seems like to discover some deep meaning and truths. Is that true? Is that something that I'm sensing about you that's true to heart?
Yeah, I think in a roundabout way, I came to that place. I felt a little teary eyed, even as you described that, way, because I was like, yeah, that is me. That is what I'm trying to, experience in this world. But I come about it through more of a type A, get it done kind of path. My background when I was in high school, I was really pursuing photography. I loved sports photography and I won a number of awards even at a high school level. And I worked as a sports photographer for a local newspaper in Northern California, the Lodi News Sentinel. I would go and shoot high school sports for them and go back to the dark room and, do all the editing. I did darkroom work for 8 years back in the day, but I had an encounter at a Christian youth event where I felt this sense of calling into ministry. And so I shifted my path from wanting to be a Sports Illustrated photographer and go to college for photojournalism to go to college to be a pastor.
Oh, wow.
And so after doing the undergraduate and graduate, and then I went to seminary, I actually started being a pastor, helped start churches here in Orange County. And the churches that happened to be a part of grew really fast. And so it aligned with who I was, and that, yeah, I wanted to help people connect with God, but I was really kind of more interested in the organizational aspect of it. I loved the vision, the values, the strategy, the team building, the volunteer development, the all of the strategic inner workings. And it wasn't until about 17 years ago when in the midst of my own workaholism, I burned out. I hit a wall and I had been trying to fill that void of not enoughness, going, man, if I could help enough people, if I could grow this church big enough, then I'll finally be enough. I'll finally, if I get that book deal, then I'll finally be enough, whatever it might be. And it hasn't been, I guess I would say, over the last 5 to 10 years of me really deconstructing that more conservative Christian way of seeing the world and coming in contact with so many people like yourself, that it opened my mind and heart up to see the world, God, the divine, outside the box of that certain dogma. And so now, yeah, I'm still driven. I love to get things done and create big things and the strategy and all that stuff. But the underlying motive of it is so much more of how do I find out what is this world all about? How do I experience all that this world has to offer? And then there is something that's a heavy drive inside of me to promote people like yourself who are doing great things. Like
Mhm.
if you're sharing that love, healing, transformation, and awakening with the world, I've done so many projects that promote goodness in
Yeah.
the world through films and obviously the magazine. So I've come about it through a drivenness,
Hmm.
that has resulted in I feel more connected to God and my mission of bringing love to the world than ever before. Really, I do. Yeah.
So beautiful. I relate so much to what you're saying. I had an early calling as well that I didn't fully dive right into. I was also driven and more pushed down that very well-worn path of achievement and going into what felt like, and I got teary eyed when you were talking about the worthiness piece, because we are given such a small and narrow set of options, most of us,
Hmm.
from both society and then our parents. We're given such a small set of options of this is what makes you worthy. This is what makes you valuable. Go do one of these things.
Yes.
We know now, right, that it hasn't nothing to do with anything that we accomplish or do externally, that it's all about our heart and about our connection to the divine. But that was a long road to get there in that understanding because our road is carved out through our experiences. And those experiences are given to us, really. They're not something that and I'm speaking for myself, maybe I'm speaking for you too, but really most of our listening audience, that we didn't grow up in these cultures where you're given a rite of passage at age 7 and now you're on the spiritual journey and you're doing this thing. We are very much programmed and conditioned down specific paths. So to break free from that takes often what you had, what I had, or a tragedy, usually, right? Mine
Hmm.
was a mix of both. I had the tragedy first, and then I had the calling later, but it takes a shakeup, doesn't it? Like something big that comes in. It sounds like you were really tapped by God to be on this mission. And it sounds like the mission for you has been the same. It's just how it's expressed itself has been a little different. So now you're expressing it through a helping others to awaken, transform, heal, and become more of who they are, it sounds like. So tell
Hmm.
us more about the how that's expressed in you these days and what you're doing in the world.
Yeah. It started to unfold, as I mentioned, kind of with the deconstructing. I started asking questions. Like one of the big questions that I started asking after, well, let me say this. When you're a pastor, you essentially are especially in the evangelical world, you really have to have all the answers. If any question that's answered, you have to have it, and it has to be the right answer.
Mhm.
So when I left ministry, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have to have all the answers anymore. I can say, I don't know, or I'm not sure, or I'm kind of thinking about this now, And so I started asking some of those questions. In the beginning, one of my very first questions was about LGBTQ inclusion in God, church, spirituality. And I then started asking questions about even the issue of hell. I mean, that's a fundamental theological issue in Christianity. If you don't accept Jesus, you're going to hell. And so to release that theological understanding and step into a new reality, I mean, that's a massive release of
Mhm.
the way of thinking about the world. And so as I started doing that, and I was simultaneously making some films about some social issues that were really important to me, one of which was on LGBTQ issues, I had this desire to do a podcast interviewing people because I was so fascinated with getting to know people. And I found that a lot of women were interested in the work that I was doing, whether it was ministry or marketing or movies and all this stuff. And so I started this podcast called Inspiration Rising to interview female entrepreneurs. And I started having a lot of women like yourself come on the podcast who were talking to me about energy and Reiki and mediumship and channeling. And I'm just going, these people are weird. This is so weird people. And I'd even tell them beforehand, I go, hey, I'm going to push back on you a little bit. I believe in what you're doing, but I'm going to be a little playful. And so I'd be like, this is satanic. Like in my old life, I don't know if we should talk about these things.
Right.
And we would laugh and kind of get into it. But it really started opening my mind and heart up to a whole new way of seeing God and the world and divine and spirituality. And then pretty quickly, I was like, this is my tribe. These are the people that I want to connect with.
Is it because it felt like truth to you?
It felt devoid. Ironically, so many of the individuals that I connect with, they have businesses, but it felt devoid of business. And the church, in large part, is a business. It is a process of getting people into something so that you can keep that something going, the church, and church does a lot of great things. I'm not I really am not even anti-Christianity or anti-church. I have such a deep reverence for my heritage, but I started to feel like, oh, these people have an openness, a freedom to ask questions and to connect with God in ways that are outside the box of what I have been able to. And I just was like, oh my gosh, this freedom feels so good. This feels like healing. This feels like, I just feel so liberating in large part. And it also caused me to ask questions to go, where are the boundaries? Are there boundaries of like light and dark? Are there boundaries of like healthy or unhealthy? Like, what are those? I guess I have to define those for myself. And so it just opened me up to seeing the world in a different way. It opened me up to saying, I'm not sure, I don't know. I can explore, I can learn, I can grow. And that's led to me, getting certified in breathwork and guided meditation. And I've gone through extensive mediumship training and channeling. I've had channeling experiences that have been very profound, even in the last 12 months. So I'm a seeker. I'm learning. I'm growing. I'm happy to help people along the way. But that's why I love connecting with people like you, is to go, you're doing great things. How do I promote what you're doing? And that's kind of how the magazine came about. So
Yeah, and the promotional side of you sounds so strong. And I mean, that's also, I resonate with that. My whole profession outside of my there's the spiritual me, which is just me now, right? There used to be a separation. I would say back in the earlier days, I kept all of that, who I was as a seeker, separate from who I was as a professional. But my professional career has largely been marketing and business development. And now all of it's nice and happy together and working together and integrated through the channel of me, which sounds
mm,
like that's exactly where you are now, where you're bringing all of those skill sets and also talents that you have as a promoter. And really, those are talents, God-given talents, right? You've got the voice, you've got the ideas. They're coming to you for a reason, because you're meant to get the word out about this practice, this practitioner, this set of beliefs, this system. And when you get called to do that, it's big, because there are so many people who are touched, whether it's one episode they listen of yours or one magazine article that they read or one class they might attend of yours. Those who are both walk on the walk, right? Doing the work themselves, but then also promoting it, sharing it, spreading the word, evangelizing it
yeah, of course.
to
Yeah.
some degree, right? Are have that bigger calling. And I see it as a beautiful piece of the whole picture, because it's the service part, right?
Mhm.
It's really that giving back to humanity.
Yeah. A couple years ago, I experienced Bufo for the first time, 5-MeO DMT. I had had some psychedelic experiences, and my partner, Mandy, was like, yeah, there's this guy, and he does this thing, and it's this toad venom. And for those of you who are listening that don't know, it's a toad venom that's secreted by the Bufo alvarius toad. And it's the most powerful psychedelic on the planet. And you smoke it, and depending on the dosage, you have this 30-minute experience. So I was going into it thinking, all right, it's probably just like a short, kind of intense psychedelic experience. Oh my gosh. I inhaled, and they have you sitting on these pillows. It immediately hits my brain and I fall backwards. Everything goes black. I'm not talking my eyes are closed black. I'm talking there's nothing. And simultaneously, I start screaming at the top of my lungs. This is what they tell me afterwards is ego death, that literally there's nothing. And I'm screaming, 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 screaming involuntarily. I'm not even thinking. My partner Mandy's there. She's holding my hand. And I'm having this like out of body experience going, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. This is so embarrassing to be doing this right now. and I'm screaming, and tears are just pouring out of my eyes and pooling in my ears, just
Mm.
pooling. And I go through this entire process of releasing so much grief and some loss that I've gone through in my own life. And as part of that experience, I'm taken through a journey of seeing every moment in my life where there has been a significant marker of calling. And they were all Christian experiences. And then in some ways, I think having walked out of that particular constructed community, I thought, I guess maybe God's just done with me. Like, in wanting to use me in a profound way. And all of a sudden, I have utilized what in the Christian world is called speaking in tongues since I was like 18.
Mm.
And I had become more aware the last 5 years or so that this was something called light language in the more spiritual community. And Carissa, it started just flowing through me with such force and power. It was the very first time I had ever done it involuntarily. It's something for most people you can turn off and, on. It started flowing through me with such force, and my arms started coming down, and I felt this groundedness and this, it was the most intense experience up to that point in my life where this light language is just flowing through me so with such force. And it was this face-to-face encounter with the divine, that you are a messenger of love and light who has been called to this planet to bring hope and love and light. And none of that has ever changed. And
Mhm.
now you're stepping into like this new season of doing this. And it felt like, yeah, like there are people who need this from you. You have to step up. Like you're
Oh.
called to do this. And that was such a reaffirmation of that, kind of calling.
Mhm.
But it wasn't about me, right? The messenger is always in place in service of the message.
Absolutely.
It's never about the messenger. And that is so easy to get to forget or lose track of, especially in a world of social media and promotion and like, hey, look at me. It's like, no, it's not about me. It's not about you. Yes, I'm promoting you, or yes, I'm promoting, but like it's about the message.
Yes. Right.
And that was such a profound like breakthrough for me a couple years ago. So yeah.
It is. It's about being that channel for the divine and being able to get out of the way for that ego to step aside, to not be in the picture, but you still are. And that's the thing about, I think, this human experience is that there's something about those that are chosen to be channels or who are called to be the messenger. It's important that human understands why the calling, like that there is something about the way you were constructed in this lifetime to be that messenger, whether it's the way that your eyes can communicate with people, or it's the cherubic smile, or it's the something that invites the human who's not yet ready to see the divine in. And that's an important factor that I think can't be discounted. That yes, it's like being that pure channel of divine message, but also understanding that we're acting as a bridge, right? And that bridge is that welcoming hand. It's being able to connect to people, to humans, to then be able to alight their soul. Because sometimes they're not ready. Most
Hmm.
people are asleep and they're
Hmm.
walking around in that place of not understanding who they really are.
Hmm.
And to just blow somebody up and say like, oh no, this is who you are. Here's the divine message. There also is a grace and a subtlety that needs to happen through the way you carry the message. Right.
Hmm.
So a guest of mine recently reminded me of the concept of the hollow bone, which is a Native American concept. There's certain tribes that believe in this or have this hollow bone metaphor that we are all hollow bones, in that the sound that emits from that bone, it's the same sound of God, same sound of the divine coming through, but who you are is going to change the what comes out the other end of that hollow bone, that you are a unique voice in the world because of that. You are a unique messenger. And so I believe who we are, the life we've had, the way we carry the message all does matter too, as well as stepping aside and being that open channel.
I mentioned this book to you earlier before our conversation started recording called The Seven Frequencies of Communication. And it just came out, I think, in October of 2024 by a guy named Erwin McManus. He is a pastor of a church in LA, but he's very avant-garde and always been on the edge. And I've seen him speak in multiple places, and he really works in more of a secular context. But I'd highly recommend that book because he says he had these 3 days where he did not sleep and downloaded these seven frequencies of communication that we all have within us, but we tend to use one or two or three in order to communicate with our loved ones, with our teams and so forth. And I'll just share with them real quick. One is motivator. That's a person who sees you and sees nothing but good inside of you. And they just love you. And and we all love that person because they see the best in us. They kind of don't see the not so great stuff. The second is a challenger. This is a person who you think they're a motivator, but their second sentence that comes out of their mouth is how you could have done something better because they see the greatness within you and they want you to step up. The third is a professor. This is someone who's all about the facts and they communicate in that way. The fourth was a healer. And this is so many of the people in the more spiritual community have that way of communicating. You're in their presence and you feel like you could say or do anything. Like you could be an open book and be fully authentic and, in front of them. The sixth, I should say, is a seer. This is the person who sees into the future and they see the positive of the future and they cast a vision for what's possible in the future. And then the seventh is a maven. This is the person who always is outside the box, always trying to communicate something. And everybody's kind of like, I don't know, what this is. Actually, I missed one. And that was commander. This is the person who sees with clarity what the next step is and wants to call you to that next step. And I think that as you're talking about this hollow bone metaphor, is that the frequency that is vibrating through us as human beings, as we are leading or communicating, I love those seven frequencies like that. That's become really interesting to me to see. Like for me, mine tends to be challenger, commander, and healer. Like those are the three that I tend to come with most strongly. And that all of us, we communicate differently and it's all beautiful. It's all a beautiful resonance.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge is that each one of those frequencies also has a shadow side.
Mm-hmm.
That if we're not operating from a place of empathy or authenticity, where really we're coming from a place of service, if we're then looking more to serve ourselves, either consciously or subconsciously, then we're operating more from the shadow side of that frequency. So I think that's the part of, hopefully, as we grow and develop as leaders and communicators, we're becoming more aware of, what are the unique ways that I communicate, and celebrate that and step into that. And this is me. This is how I communicate. This is how I share the message of
Mm-hmm.
love.
Mm-hmm.
But also there is that shadow side. And how do I be aware of that and heal that and really ask myself? One of the things that I ask people that I coach when they're getting freaked out or nervous, or maybe even it's somebody who's a guest on a podcast and they haven't ever been on a podcast, I go, hey, the thing that will reduce your nerves the quickest is to recognize if you're coming from a place of performance or coming from a place of service. Because mostly, if you're anxious, you're probably coming up from a place of performance, that I got to say the right thing, do the right thing, got to impress, whatever. The moment you shift to service and go, how can I serve? What do I have within me?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not nervous coming on to talk to you today, like at all.
Yeah.
Like, I have nothing to like prove to you or anybody else. Oh, if my life or my stories could be of service, great. That's what I hope,
Yes,
that's the shift.
so true. I've been a speaker for really most of my career. I stepped into it from the teaching side and then became a professional speaker. I came into it because I loved to teach. I was very reluctant to be a public speaker, scared just like everybody, or just like many are, to be on stage and hold the mic, and had all the same types of nervous system reactions that people get, the sweaty palms, the dry throat, the cold sweats, all of that. And the way I overcame it was by putting my service to teach in front of it all. To be like, that's what I'm doing here. That's my mission. It's
Yeah.
about lighting these light bulbs up in the audience, not about what I'm doing.
Yes.
And that changed everything. And that's
Oh,
what I teach to people when I do any type of speaker training. That's the first thing I say to them. This isn't about you. It's about those you're speaking to, and then therefore those you're serving. And that's true of all life, whether you're speaking or doing what we do, or something different, right? That stepping out of that performative place is so freeing. And I guess that's the same thing as what you were saying earlier, of really stepping out of ego and stepping into soul. Our soul is here to serve. Our soul has no need to impress, and has no anxiety around impressing, right? It has no agenda. Well, we do. I mean, we have missions, but we don't have necessarily that ego agenda to look or appear in any certain way. And stepping into that is just freedom. Right?
yeah. Yep. And I'll catch myself, I call it striving. Like I'm like,
Sure.
just like trying to make it happen sometimes. But then I can feel like, it doesn't feel good. My partner Mandy and I, she has a studio here in Orange County called Behind the Lids Healing Collective. And so we have breathwork and meditation and sound baths and all that every United week. And we'll do this once a month manifesting event we call Activate Your Abundance. And, every time we get in the car afterwards, and it's like, how'd you feel? Like, how'd it go? And I can feel inside of me the difference that if I was in a place of service and go, it just felt great. Yeah. I hope they got, all that it just it feels like this resonance, like just,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, I could have done a little better on that part, or that felt a little wonky, but you know what? That's okay. I was here to serve, and that came through, and that's all that matters. And people will take away what they take away.
What do you do when you get into that trap of striving, get into the ego trap that we find ourselves back in fairly often on this journey? What do you do? What are some of the practices or some of the reminders that you use that get you back into sanity?
Yeah, usually I feel it when things are not going the way that I want them to. Because then I'm like, this is not going the way I wanted. People are not responding the way that they should be responding, whatever situation it is. And I have to then go back. For me, it's back to that service. It's like, well, wait. Why am I doing this again? Why am I doing this? Whatever project it is. Oh, okay. It's to benefit this person, this cause, this situation. All right. And then the key also is empathy toward the other people that are involved, because oftentimes I'm trying to help someone grow their message, their platform, their work, their business as a healer, teacher, coach, and they're not taking a step forward in a way that I believe they can. And that's the challenger in me. I'm like, I see the best in you. I believe in people so quickly, so easily. It's like, no, I can see it inside of you. Let's do this, this, and this. And it's like, and I have to have empathy to go, oh, they're not ready for that. This can't be about me. This has to be in service to them or humanity. So it's the shift back to, why am I doing this? And check myself. Okay, let me go back to service. And then if I'm struggling with someone in particular, how to have empathy for them and where they're at. That generally will calm me down. The other thing that I feel like I've released a bit the last few years. It's sad to say I'm going to turn 52 here in just a couple of months, and I plan to live to 100. So I'm only halfway. I'm only halfway done.
Yeah, you're just a young buck.
I am. So, but I can really easily get into the place of, I just haven't done enough. I just haven't done enough. Like I'm behind. It's so easy to compare ourselves to anybody and everybody. either comparing down and feeling better than, or comparing up and feeling less than, is that feeling of I'm right where I need to be. I'm right where I need to be, and that's okay. It's okay. I'm on this journey, and it's not about getting ahead and winning in front of somebody or being in front of somebody down, whatever. It's like, no, 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 it's just about me. So those 3 things I'd say, why am I doing this? Service. 2, empathy for the person, people that I'm working with, and 3, recognizing that I'm okay right where I'm at. I'm right on time. I'm good.
Yeah. It's so hard to break that programming. So it's really good to have some of this strategy, so you've created a strategy for yourself that gets you out of that. And we all can create a strategy that gets us back on the path, because you'll
Mhm.
find as you move through in a spiritual life that it isn't all rainbows and unicorns. It's not all just floating in this bliss and, okay, now that I found God, I'm going to just be where it is a roller coaster ride. And there are going to be those dips and those times where you even fall off the rails and the roller coaster derails and you're way over here and you're, all busted up on the side of the road. And it doesn't mean that you can't get back on it. My belief is that we're always on the path. It's just about the recognition and the awareness of that. And
Mhm.
as soon as you do, it's like, oh, magically I'm back on the roller coaster. Woo, here we are back there. But having some strategy of how to get back there, really important to find, and certain practices that get us there too. I think the freedom you were talking about earlier, where you've got a lot of different people that have come on your show that have talked about different practices and different ways of moving through the world. And the ones that you feel called to, listeners, are those ones that you should try. There's really no secret formula. I don't think that, oh, well, this is the right one because there's this many people that are practicing it, or this is the right thing because this guru said it is, or it's because it's the most expensive one to be involved in. None of those external things matter. It is, do you resonate with it? You use that word resonance. Does it feel right to you? When we start to get into that trust of ourselves, of that internal compass, does it feel right for us? Okay, then that's right for us. Then it is the right thing for you, for me. And knowing what that is, I think being in alignment with that intuition, in your own intuition, is the most important element of all of this, of that we understand what we're being called to as individuals. So you mentioned that earlier, which brought up the thought of free will, of like, oh, you have this choice of whether you can do this, that, or the other thing, practice this, that, or the other thing. We have choice. Well, what do we choose then? Because you could get caught in either using those external markers as the reason to make that choice, or in that analysis paralysis of like, there's too many choices. I don't know what. Go back to your center. Go back to that intuition that we all have and that we've all felt. We've all experienced it in one shape or form throughout our life, whether you're a spiritual person or not. When we go back to that, then we get to tune in to what's right for us. And then that's the right next step, isn't it?
Mm, that's good. So good. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's so beautiful. Yeah. I think that I take a lot of those things so seriously. It feels like it feels so weighty to me. Like I've got one life and I've got to like do the right stuff and be on the right path and choose the right thing. And, you're talking a lot about what do you choose in terms of whether it's exploring a modality for your own personal healing, or maybe adding it to your own practice if have a business. One of the questions that I am asking myself more and more, because I'm not real good at it, is this fun for me?
Yeah.
Like my partner Mandy, she's just like a professional at having fun. She's just like an internal joy maker. And I'm like, yeah, the fun is not a value. Like getting shit done, that's the value.
Hmm.
That's just how I'm wired. And so the more I'm trying to cultivate joy in my life, it doesn't sound very spiritual, but I'll go, will this be fun? like for me?
I believe it's the ultimate in spiritual lives and in what we call spirituality. In are we having what is true joy? And it's different from happiness. It's
Yes.
different from elation. I guess it would be more in line with ecstasy of just like being in bliss. And joy is an absolute ultimate goal, I believe, in this lifetime. And where it isn't, again, found through those external achievements, it's found here inside internally. And
Mhm.
then we get to express it externally, right? We get to express it in our work. We get to express it in our relationships and in our dealings, everything from someone who cut you off on the road to your, with your partner or with your work, colleagues, to be able to be in that resonance of joy and then be able to express that out. I believe it actually makes shit happen even better for you, faster
Easier.
for you, more effectively for you. So if you can align those things of where joy and getting shit done match and are actually an integrated process, then it's like the nothing can stop you. Nothing can stop the what can be from that. And it makes everything so much more fun and amazing, and there's no reason why we shouldn't have that. And I think that's what the programs of old have taught us and programmed us and conditioned us into, is that things have to be hard in order for them to be worthwhile, or
Mhm.
I have to sacrifice in order for this to be valuable, right? All of that to me is a way to keep us as humans down. We need to control this population. We need to make them believe that it's really hard. There's a lot of sacrifice. Nothing that's worth anything is going to come easy. And not that a spiritual or a mystical life is easy, but when we start to flow and actually get into and be that channel, be that hollow bone, be that one that is in divine resonance, then all the stuff that was hard, now you understand why, right? It's just like, finally, that's why I went through and had to experience all of that. I got to experience all of that to get to now. How cool is this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think for me, in terms of work, like actually creating something that would be a contribution to the world, so much of what prevents me from experiencing joy in the process is perfectionism. So if someone has a vision of whatever they want to create, if our mind and our heart is so tied to that vision that it has to be just perfect, then oftentimes we are either in a place of control or not allowing others to participate in that vision. So a lot of the people who might be listening, you might be solopreneurs, you've got, maybe you're doing a healing work alongside of another, job or business. And I have found that the more that I'm able to invite others to utilize their gifts to help that vision come to fruition, and I release those things that I'm needing to control or be perfect about, that I can find more joy. And that's really challenging for me. Really, really challenging, because I want things to be just right and beautiful and excellent and dialed in. Some people don't have that.
Yeah.
Others are, more go with the flow. But I found for me, the way that I can reclaim some of that joy is by releasing some of that and inviting others in that have gifts that can take those things and run with them. Yeah, that's a process for me, you know,
And it's a
experiencing more joy.
balancing process, really, because your perfectionism is a
Mhm.
gift that then makes what you share have more weight for people
Mhm.
because they're taking it more seriously, because look at how professionally this is packaged and how beautifully this is packaged and how the delivery of it will, that resonance or that perfectionism, if you will, is really important for the resonance, because we know that humans won't trust things that there's a bunch of typos and this graphic is all pixelated and looks messed up and the audio on a podcast is not good. We as humans will shut off, right? We're just like, okay, well, this is obviously not valuable because they haven't put enough care into these aspects and these elements. That's absolutely important. So that perfectionism, I believe, of yours is a gift. It's just how can I also balance that with being
Yes.
in the flow? So
Right.
have perfectionism, revel in your perfectionism, but then balance it with flow and being able to flow with perfectionism and flow in your taking moments to be like, well, how can I achieve perfectionism by being in flow? I could sit and meditate and allow a channeled answer to come through for me that doesn't feel like struggling. It doesn't
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
like squeezing, doesn't feel hard, but that is still going to be, oh, that's going to be the perfect thing that I need to do next or that needs to be applied to this. And so don't fight your gifts, right? Like those are gifts that are so beautiful and are so part of who we all are. And I had to come to those realizations too around certain things that I would call unwanted. And they were unwanted because they seem to produce uh, angst, anxiety, whatever
Yeah,
negative
yeah.
feeling or thought or condition out here. I pointed to that thing. Oh, that's the cause of that. It's because of that unwanted thing that I do or that I think or that I am. And what it really was, I realized, is not that thing, but that I wasn't accepting that thing and that I hadn't befriended that thing and that I was fighting so hard against that thing and I was wasting energy there. I was wasting energy in the like trying to dam up something that wasn't was a gift. I just needed to understand it and accept it as that, and
Mhm.
then figure out how I could use it more effectively. And
Sure, sure.
then it changed. It changed its tenor, right? It's kind of like the bully, right? There's the bully in school who you know is just the most sensitive person who's had a hard life, who's been traumatized in some way, but they're so sensitive that they had to put up all these walls and then become that bully to other people. It's like that. Those things that we hold inside of us that are like the um, perfectionism for me. It was procrastination is a big one. These things that we consider enemies are our friends. They helped us in some way, right? They
Mhm.
helped us through some part of life. Then we got really good at it because it was helping us big time. It was there. It was providing support and help through that time. And to try to get rid of it or push it away only makes it stronger, I believe. But
Yeah,
to
yeah.
befriend it and say, oh, thank you so much for slowing me down then, for making me to be slower when I was just like making rash decisions and moving too quickly.
Mm.
Procrastinated me, you slowed me down in a good way, but I don't need that anymore. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for acting in that way. Like, how can we work together now? And that shift has been so profound for
Mhm.
me. And that is thanks to IFS work. If you've ever come across the internal
Mhm.
family systems
Mhm.
work,
Yeah,
along with just other inner child work, that's just been so profound and so beautiful.
it's wonderful. It has been a gift in my life. It is, for me, a matter of how do I bring a high bar of whatever it is that I'm doing, but also do it in a way that, like you said, feels in flow, feels like there's joy. And that one of the key things that somebody who has a strong vision is that once other people get involved with that vision, the vision will morph and change and tweak a little bit. And so, as a visionary, it's recognizing it actually is morphing and changing into something even better, not the exact expression of what was in my mind. And for me, Like one of the reasons why we started Awakened Magazine was I saw a number of online magazines in the marketplace that were bringing, good messages out to the world. But oftentimes they're either really rigid and professional or kind of wonky and kind of homemade. And so I just felt like if I was going to promote, increase the credibility and visibility of healers, teachers, coaches, it had to be in a way that was beautiful and engaging and professional. And so it has definitely served me well. But I, even with my team, have to go, okay, empathy, compassion, process, how does it get expressed in a healthy way?
Yeah. Having those reminders. And it's great to have a great team, as you said, around you, whether it's your family or your work family, but to have those people and have that relationship with those people to be actually being able to talk with each other and share in each other's lives in a way that is not just the surface you or the ego you, it's the
Mm,
real you.
mhm.
Getting into relationship with people in that way is wow, that's pretty special because so
Oh,
many people here just operate on that surface.
mhm.
With your work family, what do you have set for 2025? What's going on in the awakened world for us to look forward to?
Yeah. Well, at the time of this recording, we've only been in existence for 6 months. So it's such a brand new project and it's gotten so much traction so quickly that there is a funness to it. There's definitely a flow. We will have our first print edition at Conscious Life Expo in Los Angeles in February. I'm excited to be able to express this in more of a print version. And I hope to be able to do that. I love the idea of creating print versions of the magazine at expos around the United States. I think that could be very fun. I see us doing a couple of anthology books this year. I talk to so many people and hear their story of awakening, how they went from being asleep in whatever context. Maybe they were just agnostic, atheist, trying to figure out life. Maybe they were driven by career, or maybe they were stuck in a religion that didn't fit them. And they tell me their story of awakening. And I keep going, I've got to share these stories. And so I see a line of books, kind of like Chicken Soup for the Soul, but around stories of awakening because everybody's story is different. And my thought is if I can create this line of anthology books all around stories of awakening, and we can get that in the hands of people who are asking questions and they start to see a mirror of themselves in these stories,
Yeah.
that excites me. That's so exciting. So I see a couple of those books, maybe this year coming out. Yeah. And I would love to do our first in-person event. I love expos. I think they're really exciting and energetic. But because of my background and the amount of events that I put on and speaking, I know that if you take someone through a curated experience from morning till evening around a theme, their life can shift very dramatically. And I would love to bring one-day events in different places. Maybe we'll just do one this coming year. I would love to see that happen, to bring these conversations into an in-person place and really showcase some of the great thinkers and healers. I just had Dr. Sue Morter on the podcast the other day. She wrote the energy codes.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, that woman is so powerful and so clear in her ability to articulate that everything is energy. Amazing. I'd love to have her at a in-person event.
Oh, yeah. What would you like to leave people with as far as a message of what to expect by interfacing with you or a message that may be coming through for you right now? And you can take a moment too if you want to clear your communication channel for what it is to share, but anything, final words that you want to leave.
Yeah, I think the thing that comes through in this moment and just so often for me is that what you're doing matters probably more than you even think it does. Like your voice, your message, the work that you do, the light that you're bringing into the world, like we need it. And so whether you have a healing practice that you're offering to our world or you're bringing just your presence into the workplace, no matter what you're doing, you are needed. Your voice, your hope, your light, your love, it's needed in this world so much. And so don't shrink back from sharing it. Like find ways that are in alignment with you and your personality to share that message of hope, of love, of light to the world, because it's just desperately needed. It's desperately needed. I mean, not to be dark, but turn on the news and you see the challenges of our world. It's just a very challenging place. But at the same time, I go, it's also a place of tremendous light and a tremendous amount of love. And that's where you come in, express it in your own way. We need that from you.
Yeah. Right. And if that expression is not organized, doesn't go out to anyone in particular, but is just simply emanating from you, that's enough. Right.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you so much, David. This was such a pleasure.
Yeah, it's fun to be with you. Thank you
You
for the
too.
honor.